Hi everyone, Alchemist Lion here, and today we're going to meme the shit out of Stonewood Endurance. So what do I mean by memeing Stonewood Endurance? Well, I find a lot of times in the community you'll get people who will, wholeheartedly ask for a Stonewood Endurance build, and the group consensus or the group answer is usually a little bit of a community chuckle with just put down floor spikes and you'll be good. And as much as they probably have never done that, it's because Stonewood is easy, and there are things you can do to make it work fairly effectively with little effort. That being said, though, I wanted to explore that. Can you just put floor spikes down? And so that's what we've done today. I am going to show you how to floor spike only Stonewood Endurance. So let's begin. So, funny thing is, this build came about because I tried something else and it failed, and that was a trap-free base. I wanted to do an an endurance with base only, no traps, and I could get to about wave 11 to 13 before running into issues where I had to shoot huskies getting through because even with Frozen Castle snaring them, they just were able to walk through fast. And because Thunder Thor's damage wasn't enough to kill them, the big Huskies, before they got to the amp, they were starting to bang on the walls and get through at about that wave 13 thing. But still, it's funny to see. So I'll show you some of that clips, because that's how this started. All right, so before I begin, some of the things that you deal with when dealing with a floor spike only base is lobbers and flingers. And if you take a look, I have a massive lobber shield. I have that on all my amps, and that is to take care of that problem. With that out of the way, your problem really becomes smashers and propane. Smashers, in all honesty, are not that big of a deal as long as you have fail-safes, and my base has lots of fail-safes for smashers. The main struggle, and the only reason I can't do this without base, is propane. You have nothing to stop propane. Spikes do nothing to prevent propane from throwing. My propane tactics are sound walls, drop traps, freeze traps, and things of that nature. There's none of that here. So propane goes buck wild. Wave 18 is a propane wave, and they basically clear everything out by the end of the time. Once 18 is done, they might not have amp damage, but there's no actual trap tunnel anymore for the next wave that hits. So around wave 23 is when you'll notice, especially if it hits the same direction, that you'll start to have problems if you don't use base on this type of setup. Base, I'm basically just using it for the extra building health, the repair speed, as well as the extra damage that I can put out. I can get a tick with Thunder Aura for this loadout. And her thing is electrified floors. Enemies standing on structures affected by base take 38.1 base energy damage every 5 seconds. So she's essentially giving us a secondary damage tick that we can rely on to help kill the husks. And that's in addition to the ticks that the floor spikes already give that we're boosting with supercharged traps. And supercharged traps, it's giving us increased damage of traps affected by base by 8.5% for every constructor. I maxed out the constructors here. So I have 5 constructors, that's 42.5% more damage that my floor spikes are putting out. On top of that, we're doing Feel the Base as support. And in support, it deals 39 base damage in a 3-tile radius every 30 kills that happen on top of a structure that base is hit. So that's a third aspect of damage that we're adding to this loadout and still just using the one trap. On top of that, we're using Mega Base to increase the range by an extra tile, and that tile is at the start and the end. So technically we're getting away with 2 in some of my builds by having him in support. And the more spread that base has, the better the whole setup will work. And then we have power modulation and lofty architecture as a combo. Power modulation heals your structures that base is touching. Lofty architecture just increases their health. And then to end it off, we're using Frozen Castle to slow down the husks that are walking on base affected floors. So that means on top of the snaring that the floor spikes do, we're adding 15% more slowness by having Frozen Castle in play. And that's how this loadout works. And it reduces significantly the amount of propane that goes off in this build. But we'll take a look at all the different amps, and I'll just show you how I have it pathed, because really the pathing is 100% why this can work. So let's take a look. All right, get your notepads ready, because we're going through all the traps I use in this base. Just joking, it's this. 144 wooden floor spikes. The 144 is not important. I have my floor spikes boosted up because I use them in every build. However, Stonewood down tiers them, so you're not going to get that full benefit. However, it's the perks that really matter. We're doing a crit rating, double crit damage build with heals builds attached. And the heals builds is really vital in this, especially because propane are constantly going off. Even with base, there is some propane that goes off, but because we have heals on the base, plus we have heals on the traps, it's kind of negating some of it, so we're not losing as much builds as if we didn't have base at all. So yeah, this is the trap. This is it. So our first amp we're going to look at is our home base amp. And what I'll do is I'll just kind of hop over the lobber shield and we'll take a look at it from the spawn side. So right here, we're at spawn. So they like to spawn down here. And they kind of go up in 3 different areas. So right here is the one area. So they like to walk up here and go this way. So you'll notice basically anywhere they're walking after spawn, I have floor spikes hitting them. I haven't spammed them per se. I do have them pretty much everywhere, but these ones underneath, partially for block off purposes, which I'll probably cover in a completely different video later on down the road. And then also if a smasher does happen to break through or aggro, there's a fail safe. So this path isn't completely open. If it's broken, there's still the spikes there to hit people as they walk through. You'll notice that in almost every piece where there is potential pathing that way. Otherwise, on places like this where there isn't, I don't have the floor spikes there because they're not needed. But I went as close to spawn as possible without things breaking. So as soon as they get up here, that's when they're being hit. And as they walk around, they're never not on a spike. At the same time, I'm pathing them and moving them around, so I'm getting extra tiles. Because if they just were to go straight to the amp, after about wave 8 or 11, the spikes pretty much alone won't cut it. Unless you're diverting them and making them hit with more spikes. If it's just a straight path to the amp, less likely that it will succeed. So pathing is critical in this, in getting as much damage as possible without them just running straight to the amp. So this side I have going this way, and you'll notice I kind of push them all the way over, and then as they get here, I push them all the way back here. So I'm getting so many extra tiles. You'll notice here I don't even have spikes in here, which I probably would, but I haven't had anybody break this way, so I haven't had to do it. I have put spikes on this one. I think one time I saw a husk breaking there, but I mean, yeah, they just kind of walk around and go up this way towards the amp. And then again, I have all my amps are surrounded by a wall, and then I have little openings where I want them to walk, and they will target those openings. So as they come up here, they'll divert around and they'll try to go that way, getting an extra tile in there too. It's all about getting as much tile pathing as possible with the husks. Like so. And see, if they come down here, they'll hit this, then they'll go up the ramp, and then they'll go into that chain. And then on this side, it's the same sort of thing. I'm pushing them over, they come up here, and then I push them over this way, and then they come up here, and then I get them over one more. And it's, again, as getting as much coverage as possible on that. And that is really home base. Yeah, it's when it's one trap, there's not a lot to explain. You put floor spikes, you make them walk over it. What I had to have set up is I have kind of little like outposts where I put my base down, so I get the most coverage, as much coverage as possible. So I'll put base down here, and it lights up 5 tiles this way, and it lights up 5 tiles over here. So it gives a nice spread, and then it also does the 5 tiles in back. So most of their pathing is also set up with base, so that I'm, getting as much benefit with that as possible. Now we're going to take a look at this northwest amp. This amp gets hit so much, and there's only one direction. So usually durability is an issue on this, but for this one, not so much. What I'll do is I'll just kind of take a look and show you how I have it set up. So again, I have a wall around it. You'll notice this one, though, I do not have an opening. I don't need it. If anything, I find that with smashers coming here, having these walls up makes them go a little less aggro and more likely to follow the pathing that I have set up. But what we'll do is we'll take a look at how they spawn in and where they want to go. So this one I've given myself a little extra. This front row usually will break after a bit, but I want it to give it here just because of how much this base gets hit. I want it to give myself as much chance as possible, not knowing if this would really work at the time that I built it. But they'll come up this path. This is the main one. They'll come up here, and then because I have everything blocked off over here, what I'll do is I'll show that. And again, I have spikes here just in case they try to break through. They're being hit and killed the entire time that they're over here. And then from this side, we'll just open this up quickly, and we'll take a look, and it just set up like this. So that's how the block off is set up here. And I have some floors there for base connectivity at some stages, but at the same time, I was just kind of giving myself some extra playroom. But yeah, that's all I have it blocked off. So if anything drops down and tries to walk up here, if they don't die, what they'll do is they'll try to divert down this way. So once they're up here, they'll walk over this way, and I have everything blocked off. And again, I put walls here, full walls, just so smashers don't see it, see the amp and want to charge through here. And instead, my goal is to kind of make them move around here. I also put low walls in a lot of spots just so it's easier to see. And again, probably something I'll explain a little later on, but it doesn't do a lot in terms of making the block off less effective. So it's kind of cool just to be able to see it and see what I'm doing. You can see the fail safes in there if a smasher does happen to break through here at any stage. There's still spikes there to save the day, but the spikes are also serving as kind of like a block off piece too. So they aren't viewing that as a viable option. They'd much rather walk the open path, even though it's still trapped out, because the unopen path is also trapped out. And yeah, so they just kind of walk around here, right where this ramp goes up. That's where these are all set up, and at the very far part, that's where I have them walking straight across. And then I have it diverted over again. You're trying to maximize the amount of time that they're pathing. You want to try to maximize the amount of spaces they have to walk to make this work, and that's what I'm doing here. And then right here, right at this corner, I have these two little walls to make them have to walk again to get to a spot where they can beat and try to get towards the amp. And that is Northwest amp. Now we're going to take a look at the main Southeast amp. And I say main one is because all the South amps are flex amps, and I do have the flex Southeast amp. But I'm talking about the core four that are in the middle, and this is the kind of middle Southeast amp that we have. So this one gets hit in two directions. It gets hit from the east, and it gets hit from the south, so we kind of have to deal with both. This east spawn is fun because it has a wide spawn range, and they come from underneath here. They go all the way down in here, which is their main one, and then they spawn all the way up here and even up at this top part here. So what we'll do is we'll take a look, and they like to walk this way. The ones that spawn up here and up here, they'll kind of divert down. Now I do have this all blocked off here to stop them just walking across and dropping down. And you'll see here I did put spikes where they like to break. Just in case they do break, they're landing on spikes when they're trying to break this. And a lot of times husks will die as they're trying to get through. But that doesn't happen all the time. The majority of time they walk this way and cross the spikes here. Now there is a tornado that will rampage the later waves of this amp, and it will clear off some, if not all, of these floor spikes, but it's so late in the game that it doesn't make a big difference, and the damage these do early on help save damage and durability for this lower part later on. So I like to have this here. And again, we're getting it as close to spawn as possible that we're breaking. So they'll walk here, and everything is blocked off here. I have spiky block off to match my spiky endurance, and they'll go this way. And they'll drop down, they'll come over here, and there's a lot that they have to path, and then they fall down here. And as I said, there's lots for them to path and hit before they actually get to the amp. And then once they're here, the opening they want to reach for is right over here. So there's even more stuff. They're not going to break through this wall. They want to get to that amp, and I have it open right at where the terminal is. So they really want to path over this way. And there's just a lot of spikes. And to be honest, the only thing that gets down here is usually smashers. But yeah, that's the one side. Now, for the husks that don't go that way, there's two paths that they'll take. A lot of times they want to go through here, and then I have, again, you're trying to give it as much walking distance as possible so that they're hitting as many of the spikes as possible. If anything breaks through, I do have spikes there just in case, but the pathing here, they will generally follow. And they just walk all the way around. You can already tell by the time they get over here, they're usually dead. This one's set up fairly well, and here's my base setup. So I kind of have wood and brick using as my base markers. So I'll put base here, and base will cover down over to here. It covers down and over to here, and then it covers pretty much all of this. And this is the key part, because this is the major part that they will walk and deal with. Other husks will come here and they'll walk this way, and they'll go through this path. And then we have spawns that spawn up here. They'll drop down, and they'll do two paths. They'll go this way, and see, I still don't have things upgraded, but that's just me. Or what they'll like to do is they'll like to walk this way, and you'll notice I have it all set up. If they do break through, there's traps like that all underneath all of these, just because occasionally, especially when I didn't have base, sometimes a smasher would, try to clear a path through this. Not very quickly, I might add, but they try. But a lot of the husks will path this way, and they'll walk all the way around. And it's an insane path for them to take. Generally, they won't get to this point. But if they did, they still have all this to contend with. And the funny thing is, they won't break through these ones. Instead, they'll continue this path. and they won't break through here. A smasher would break through this, but regular husks, they walk all the way around to here. Well, they try to. Usually, if anything happens, they usually will die here if they've gotten through all that, like say something smashed through. But yeah, that's how I have this all set up for the spikes only. It's, yeah, like so. Now we're going to take a look at the Southwest amp. And Southwest meaning the main 4 amps. I'm doing that Southwest one, not the Flex ones. So for this Southwest spawn, they come at you at 2 different directions. They'll attack from the south, and they attack from the west. So what I'll do is I'll just take a look at how the south spawns in, and how I have this all set up. So you'll notice right away I have a lot of block off set up here, and this is basically just to ensure they path the way I want them to, and then there is some fail safes just in case they happen to want to try to get over here and start breaking through things. That's what these spikes are for. They also are semi-block offy, but again, we'll cover that later. But that's how I have this all set up on this end. This is all blocked off. This path down here is all blocked off. And then, say for example, they decided to break through all of that. The fun thing is, our west spawns path cuts out here, so even if they manage to get through all that block off, they're still coming up into this tunnel and being hit with a crazy amount of spikes before they get to the amp. But that's never really going to be an issue on this. Husks will not do that. Instead, what they'll do is they'll come over here. And there's basically 2 paths that I'm taking them. They can walk up here and go up to this spot. Or, more commonly, they'll just walk here and then walk up. So you'll notice I have some spikes at the beginning here. This is just to save me a little bit of pain in the future. For the most part, the real action happens up towards the amp on this base. So I have some spikes here too. And this block off ensures that nothing's going up and around this way. Instead, it's basically just, once they get here, they're all kind of connected together at this tile right here. So this is the key part. This tile right here. Everything else is kind of just their separate pathing. So once they walk up here, you'll notice this is where I have my brick. So this is where base is set up. So base will hit here. It will also go down here and cover these 2 tiles, the main 2 tiles that they're walking. And base will also connect here. And you'll notice that I have all this blocked off here, and I also have walls. These walls will stop them seeing the amp and making them want to charge at it from this spot. Instead, what they'll do is they'll walk around. And you'll notice I do have the spikes underneath all the cones. In case something does smash through, it isn't critical if they break. Because there's still floor spikes doing their job. So, right here, all the way around, and this whole entire thing is set up with base covering it all. And then they walk this way to the amp. And I have the amp opened up here to really make them want to go this way versus trying to get at the amp from right here. Because this is where the terminal is. They really want to try to push through this. And I'm doing my best to make sure they don't go this way to get to the amp. And instead they're going around this entire path. Like so. And now we'll take a look at the west. So the west spawn, again, I'm trying to get as close as I can without tiles breaking. Husks do eventually break this pretty quickly, but I have it here for a little bit because they will divert over and around for the first little bit until that breaks. And then they just kind of walk up. And then this is the main path they like. They walk up here, they get to this spot. You'll notice I have things set up just so to make them try to go this pathing. See, I don't even have to have any floor spikes there because they'll walk this like I want them to. Base is set up right here at this little nub, and this little nub is basically covering from over here, covers over here, as well as it covers down this way. And so I get a good spread for my trap coverage using base in this location. And so you'll see the pathing, and I have them go this way, and then from this point, I'm making them walk this way and around and then over to the amp where I have the opening. And I have block off here if they do try to break through, just because the terminal's right there. I still have spikes here doing their thing if a smasher does end up breaking through, but I find this is enough block off to make them want to walk this way and try to get to the amp from there. And then in here, again, it's all spikes, all fail-safes just in case. This side, I find they don't like as much. I find I have to open it up, and even then, they still prefer walking this way. But I have this here just in case. And I'll just close that up again. See, it's still not upgraded. This path doesn't get used a lot, but a few times they will. Usually they'll die by here if they do. But say they want to walk around, it's a whole walk around they have to do to get to this spot over here. And then once they're up here, this is where base sort of starts. So I have this set up so they're not breaking through here. And again, I don't even have this stuff upgraded because I haven't paid attention to it. They walk here, and then they go over this way. And they kind of meet here. But all this is set up with base, so for anything to get to this spot would be kind of a miracle for them. The main piece is this way, and yeah, this is all I have to have set up. Again, I went with the spiky block off. Everything's low so you can see what's going on. And anytime I have a full wall, it's usually to block their view. Technically, if you want it to make this a little bit more secure, you can set up walls like that and just really prevent them seeing the amp from this location. And this is the southwest amp. Alright, so we have our southeast flex amp right here. And it can attack you from the east as well as the south. The two main things with this amp is we have a tornado that rips through the back 7 tiles here, which is why we pretty much have no builds aside from the wall around the amp. That's basically just to keep mini bosses busy at this stage, or smashers if they get through. So it really limits us, because if I'm doing floor spikes only, you can't really put floor spikes anywhere here, because they're just going to get broken. So that's challenge 1. The second challenge is hotspots. Hotspots like to spawn all over the place, especially on the south end. They like to spawn all over the place. Like you'll have a hotspot down here, you'll have a hotspot right over here. You'll have hotspots up right here. So there's a lot of areas that hotspots like to come in and just wipe out a lot of your pathing and builds. So I had to try to work around it. And so from this side, we'll start at the south first. When they spawn down, there's a few different ways they'll go. Their main way is they like to walk up here. And the funny part about this is right now, and I'm not going to change it just because it works, is this wall they like to break. And they like to break this floor tile before getting here because it's a little bit of a broken ramp. Normally I say don't build up here, but this works so well because for the first wave it got hit, they never really left this spot. They were just banging, and as soon as one hits this spike, or as soon as one gets whatever, they get killed, because we have Thunder Thora, base, and all that, because base is set up right here. And so they keep just getting killed. The other path they'll go is this way. So you'll see this is where the ridge terrain is. I just kind of covered it and blocked it off. So I surrounded it with walls, and then I just put a floor on it. And that's where I have my base set up right here. And that just gives me coverage, so it's still hitting this path. It's a big pathing area, so I had to hit everything. It hits this path, and it hits that path over here. It doesn't hit this path as much, but you'll notice this path wraps around and still comes over here, so the husks are still going to get hit by base by going that way. And there's a lot of extra pathing, so the preferred path I would love them to take is this one. But only a few husks are bold enough to go this way. As I said, for the most part, they like to go up that ramp, and then a few will trickle this way. So we have it set up now. I have it so that as they're pathing, I also have these little short walls, so they're constantly having to maneuver around and try to take the most widest distance, so they're still hitting as much of each tile as possible, and that's key. And as you know, I still haven't upgraded everything. And then once they get to this spot, they get up here, and then they kind of have to go around, and then they can get up. If they reach that point, they've earned it. And that's this side. And again, if anything gets broken, I do have spikes underneath just as a failsafe. Probably could no, yeah, I don't have upgrade things yet, but again, some of that stuff's not upgraded because it doesn't really have to be. It's just kind of serving a backup potential. Same as that. Okay. So now this is the main path, so we're going to take a look at this. Because we've kind of covered this side quite a bit. Now we're going to go up here. So they come up here, and then the way I had it set is they were going to path up here. What ends up happening, though, is hotspots happen. And this breaks. This entire area is basically open. So as soon as they reach this point, they can just walk up and get to the objective. So because of hotspots, what I've done is I still have that just in case, say they did want to break through and get up there. It's kind of there in case emergency. I haven't put a cone on it or anything. I don't want them to stop looking at this path as a viable option. But what I want them to do is I want them to walk up here. This is right next to base. So I'm hoping that base will keep this piece alive, and if anything happened to phase through without sound walls, there's no real phasing going on. But if this happened to break, there's still a spike here. If they wanted to break, they would try to go around sometimes, so I have spikes here just in case. But this ramp is key. If they can go up this ramp, then I have them pushed away from that hot spot, and then they can path properly over here. Otherwise, all these walls are gone, this tile is gone, this cone is gone, and they just walk straight up, and they avoid like a potential 4 extra tiles of damage. Well, 5 if you count the ramp. So that's why we have this overhanging the cliff, because this is a cliff wall right here. I just have everything walled up for base connectivity, because base is connected all the way up here. As I said, it's connected down here, it's connected over there, and it's over here. So I'm really just trying to maximize my base output so that the spikes are doing as best or much damage as possible. Then I have everything blocked off. If they do try to push this way, you'll notice the pieces that aren't as vital don't have spikes underneath. But once they get up to about here, that's when I have a row of spikes here, just to really deter them from wanting to go that way. And everything's blocked off. And again, I put walls where I don't want them to see the amp, to try to help. And then once they get up here, it's free reign to the amp if they want it. One of the things I did do in the video when I was building is I did have a little thing like that. It breaks pretty quickly, but this was just to stop them from seeing the amp as they're getting up to this spot. Did it make a big difference? Probably not. So it's not a vital part of my build, but it is something that if you looked in the video, when I show kind of how I run this, it's in there. And then the only other direction is from the east, and we'll take a look at that. So this side is very well set up. They'll go through a couple different paths. The first one is here. Generally, they would try to walk up this path and go through, but I have it blocked off. And then any floor, I have a spike also to help divert their attention from this pathway. And if you walk around the other side, you'll see here underneath there is a spike there as well on the back end. And the only wall is this one wall, just to stop them from looking through, basically. But otherwise, it's just set up like that. Stairwells up, and then the floor spikes at the bottom, and the floor spikes at the very top. And that's how I have that blocked off. And that's so they walk path this way. And so once they get here, they'll come up this way, and you'll notice right here is where my base is set up. And it's right at the very front. This one's a little different, but this gives all the coverage. The reason why they're at the front is because you have no room in the back to build. So you have to get all the damage in a small little area. And that's what we're doing here. So they're walking here on these tiles. All these tiles, again, are covered by base, pretty much up until this point. these ones. And then they get up here. Again, everything's connected by base. They get up here. I used the 2-tile tunnel endurance build that I had to kind of set up the pathing on this, because I already kind of worked from right here. So this is kind of a continuation of how I had that. And then I just expanded it. And you'll notice anywhere if they could break through, I still have spikes. I have spikes pretty much everywhere here, just in case. Again, because of the limited distance that I have to play with, I really wanted just to maximize the potential here. And then they come here. Again, I have a wall just to block it all off. I put solid walls here to make them really divert over more and get a few extra tiles of damage in. Because once they get up here, there's nothing. And then block off on this side, everything. Again, it's all just the spiky block off, the cones, edited up. Some of it's not even upgraded, just because it doesn't have to be. The spikes are there. And then the other path is up this ramp. And I have this side covered, and instead I'm pushing them to the farthest possible spot, walking over. I'm trying to get at least one full tile of walking anytime they hit a tile. If they're not walking in the full distance of it, then it's kind of a waste. And that's what I have set up here. And again, base is covering this entire spread to try to maximize what I can do damage-wise. And then the only other piece is the block-off part. You'll notice some of it's still not even blocked off or upgraded, but the 3 rows here, just to divert anything from wanting to go up this way. And then this path, I have spikes at the very start underneath these walls. Then this stair is just stair, floors, cone, stair, floor, cone. And then we end right up here in line with this 3rd wall. And everything's low just so you can see kind of how it's set up. And when it comes to block off, that part isn't as vital as just having it there. The only time I do full walls in this is either on stairs for connectivity, or if I just don't want the husks to see past that point on the build. But yeah, that is the Southeast amp. Now, I probably don't have to explain this, but you can make this build better. There's lots of different things you could do. Even if you just wanted to run with the spikes, there's a few things. Like you can add darts to these big walls. You can add dynamos and zapomaxes to the little walls. You could add gas traps to where there is ceilings. Fuck, you can even add more ceilings. And, you know, add some extra stability to it. Change it up occasionally and put, you know, a freeze trap in between 2 dynamos. Add more roof. There is lots that you can do. The main thing is, and I was saying that earlier, is the pathing. Like I said, you can, like, you know, put that wall here and they're pathing up. Have a dart shooting them. There's lots of different things you can do. Propane. Putting sound walls, especially at the beginning here, you know, having some sound walls here. You can do so much. This is just showing you bare bones. You don't need a lot to do Stonewood. And that's the joke. That's the big, you know, that's why people say just throw down floor spikes, is because Stonewood is easy. And heck, you can just throw down spikes and get to the end. Alright, that's my video today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate the support. Hope this information can be helpful. And yeah, help you have some fun with this game. But have yourself a great day. And I'll catch you around.